Welcome, everyone. We are delighted to have participants from different parts of the world, whether you're joining us live or watching us later on. Thank you, though, for being with us for another session of the Spiritism Talk series promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation, held every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. It is my distinct pleasure to host today's talk, presented by Rejane, who will be speaking on the topic the conscious expression of mediumship. So let's give Rejane a very warm welcome. But before we begin, please allow me to briefly introduce her. Rejane is an electrical and nuclear engineer with a master's degree in nuclear engineering from the Military Engineering Institute in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Since 1989, she has lived in Austria. An International Atomic Energy Agency retiree. For 27 years, she worked at various positions in nuclear energy, nuclear safety, and security. A writer and poet, she has contributed articles to several Brazilian Spiritist magazines, among them Presença Espírita, Revista Internacional do Espiritismo International, Momento Espírita, and O Reformador. She is also co-founder and vice chair of the Association for Spiritist Studies Allan Kardec. Please feel free to send your questions at any time during the presentation using the chat window. Rejane has set aside time at the end to address your comments and questions. Rejane, the floor is yours.
Thank you. All that you said is my past life. My current life is to be a happy granny, taking care of kids and studying this beautiful doctrine that is the Spiritism. Sometimes teaching, sometimes doing other things. But thank you for the opportunity to share some of my thoughts with you. Today, we are talking about the conscious expression of mediumship. Mediumship is well known, I think, for everyone, is the capability of communicating with spirits, with the other side of life, because life is not only the reality, the tangible things that we experience here on earth, but something bigger and broader than that. And we believe that in the two sides of life, or maybe there are many sides of life, but the life that surrounds our planet, the spiritual life that surrounds our planet, is filled by spirits, and mediumship is this ability to communicate with them. But before I enter in the subject, I think you agree with me that the beginning of the year, and we are at the beginning of a new year, it's an opportunity for us for renewal, for reflection, for having hope of achieving something better in these next 365 days and longer maybe. Of course, we are always willing to make efforts in the new years. We make promises, and at the end of the year, sometimes we forget that. But in the current world situation, it's good for us to look at ourselves. In this, like a Spiritist philosopher in the 19th century said, Leon Denis, we live in an ocean of energies, of spiritual beings, and our life is almost also, we are in this big ocean where waves push us to the top and also pull us to the deepest waters, usually of our own emotions. Then our soul needs to confront itself to grow. And I think this is either by exercising mediumship or being aware of being a medium, or by being not aware, not conscious of this communication with the other side of life. But still, we need to look within ourselves that to grow and to go further. To grow further, to grow, in my view, is essential to our well-being. We need to be aware of this constant interaction with the beings who live with us and those that we see, our companions, our children, grandchildren, the community we live in, but also those who we usually don't see. This is why I'm referring to the communication with spiritual beings. I don't like much this word disembodied beings, and I'm not sure if it's widely used in English. I don't like much. I prefer to say spiritual beings. We are all spiritual beings, but we are incarnated or in a body. And those who we don't see are then the disembodied beings. That I don't like the word, but that is true. We don't perceive them, or they are not perceived by everyone. However, throughout the history of humanity, the human beings have experienced contact with the transcendent and with the invisible world. Over the last 2 millennia, many have denied its existence, but they are there. It has the existence of a spiritual world, or the spirits, has been manifested throughout history in all over the world. We can find evidence of mediumship in the primitive cave dwellers, in the ancient civilizations such as the Egyptians, or in the Eastern civilizations, the early Christians in Greece and in Rome. And although when we come to the Middle Ages, we enter in a kind of shadow, that means they try to eliminate the communication with other souls from the history of human beings, or at least to eliminate those who could communicate. But there is no way. We've been, I believe, liberated from this dark influence with the Illuminism, and in the 19th century with when Allan Kardec, who was a scientist, an educator, a professor, studied and analyzed the phenomena of not only mediumship, but apparitions of spirits, manifestation of spirits, mediumship, and so on. And left for us 5 interesting books to learn more about. That means we cannot deny that there are communications with spirits. And today, I think we can talk about that quite free, because we have plenty of books. There are many movies on TV or Netflix, whatever. Social media posts on the subject are spreading in the Instagram, Twitter, whatever you use. That means one cannot deny the communication with the other side of life. However, every one of us experience this communication in different, or the influence of spirits of other or of souls that are not in body like we are, in the material body like we are, in some degree, in different degrees. Sometimes it's just that intuition the need to talk, for instance, the need to talk to someone dear to us, and we text or we call, and the person on the other side of the line say, I was just thinking of you. How many times do you experience that? I'm sure that each of us has experienced some intuition like that, a light feeling of someone wants to talk to us. Sometimes also it's an urge to do something that we really didn't think about. It could be also an inspiration from other souls. And this is why we need to know who we are to distinguish this intuition, the inspiration, the intrusion in our thoughts of those of other souls. Of course, we are under influence of each other constantly. When we live in communities, we cannot live alone in a cave in the mountains. We live in towns, and for as energy beings that we are, emotional beings, sentimental beings, our energy interact with each other, and it means that we influence each other. Also as embodied souls, as souls that live in this body. But also we receive and we influence other souls, souls that are not in the material world, but they can manifest in this world. Some of us are not aware of this influence. Some others use consciously their ability to communicate and are mediums and are declared mediums. Sometimes this runs in the family, and it's very common to hear, oh, my mom is a medium, or my granny was a medium, and I also have some ability, some mediumship ability. Life is a rainbow, isn't it? And mediumship also manifests itself in various shades and nuances. How the spirit of Viana de Carvalho is, he was also an electrical engineer, lived in the 19th century, beginning of 20th century in Brazil, in the South Brazil, although he was from the Northeast. And he communicates with through the mediumship of Divaldo Franco, who many of us know, was one of the greatest mediums, Brazilian mediums, who passed on in 2005, unfortunately. But Viana de Carvalho says that mediumship is a paranormal record that is inherent in human beings, similar to intelligence and reason. This is a very important statement because it says it's paranormal, it's inherent, that means everyone has, any human being has a seed of that. It's similar to intelligence and reason. That means it can be developed, intelligence can be developed, reason can be developed, mediumship can be developed. And I was asking myself when I read that, why is paranormal? Why we label mediumship and other kind of abilities like mediumship as paranormal? Because our modern science, the academy, considers paranormal any phenomenon that cannot be measured, reproduced, and explained through known mechanisms, to the current known science. That means mediumship is a human faculty outside the current scientific model. This is, therefore, is an anomalous phenomenon or a paranormal phenomenon. Nevertheless, mediumship has been seriously considered in several fields of science, like psychology, anthropology, religion, and other scientific areas that are also looking deeply at this phenomenon. Currently, we have more chances in the academy because there were 2 recent papers published in this subject. Probably there are more, but I'm aware of at least 2. One of them was published in the US in the journal Explore, and it was the results of publishing to 2022. The research is conducted by scientists from the Institute of Noetic Science, the Center Leo Apostel for Interdisciplinary Studies in Brussels, and for a college in Israel. And this very interesting studies is a genetic assessment of mediums and non-mediums. They looked at over 3,000 persons. From those 3 that claim they were mediums, or their family members were also psychic. From those 3,000, they select only 13 because they eliminate those who had indications of psychotic or delusion tendencies, and only 13 were selected in the study, and plus 10 persons for a control group. You know that any scientific study needs a control group that you can balance and statistically look at the research. Okay, the interesting that they took the DNA and they examined the DNA from those 23 participants, and it's a very expensive test, and they looked at the whole exome sequence. That means exome is the protein part of the DNA. They looked at that, trying to see common trends and something that would come only in the psychic group or only in the non-psychic group. And they didn't have a very strong conclusion, because they said that there are not many variations in the protein coding system, but they found, and this I've thought, I'm not from the area, but I've thought very interesting, and probably someone from biology from any of this area who studied the DNA and the genes will have better understanding. But they said that an exon, related to a certain gene showed highest RNA expression, and this gene appears to be in more quantity, if you can say that, in the brain, in the endocrine tissue, and in the muscles. But interesting, this was found in the non-psychic group. And then what they say is that more research needs to be done. The second that is very interesting, it was just published in 2025, and is really a pioneer study in the area of genetic and mediumship. Was conducted by 2 very well-known universities in Brazil, the University of Juiz de Fora and the University of São Paulo. University of São Paulo is a renowned, both are very well-known universities. And the results of this study was published in the Brazilian Journal of Psychiatry. They also sequenced the exomes. I'm not sure if you say in English exomes or exomes. I apologize for that. And from 54 mediums, and compared to non-mediums, 53 non-mediums. Those 53 non-mediums were first relatives of the mediums. and they identify 1,000 of variants unique to the mediums and highlighted 33 genes of interest. This is what I can summarize for you about these two scientific research. But why mention it? Because from the 19th century study of Kardec, we are evolving now for trying to prove, or with a hypothesis, because any scientific studies starts with a hypothesis that mediumship is organic, is biologic, is physiologic, and try to understand that, and try to understand if it's genetic inheritance. It's very interesting, but it's not the only topic of our conversation today. It's good to understand and good to know, because it's a kickoff in the area of mediumship and genetica, two pioneers studies. And let's hope that more people get interested in that. Like I said, in the 19th century, the research was different. We didn't have genetic, but Allan Kardec, who codified the Spiritism, scientifically studied the phenomena at that time, and left the mediums book and the whole literature for us to understand the phenomena and to understand how this phenomena, because mediumship is has not one side, has many sides or many facets, how it influences us and how we mediums influence the others. Then the first point I'd like to stress is that mediumship is a characteristic of a human being. We develop this ability as we improve, like we can improve our intelligence and our reason, like I said before. And also through the mediumship, we can evolve. We can make our evolutionary journey as immortal souls quicker if we adhere to some ethics and to our well-being, and to enhance not only our well-being, but the well-being, contribute to the enhancement of well-being of the community where we live. Then, in fact, what the spirits have told us through several mediums is that the mediumship awakens in the human beings as an evolutionary achievement, as a tool for inner growth, and of course in our search for enlightenment and happiness. That is the end of our journey as immortal souls. I remember that Chico Xavier, or better the spirit André Luiz, in the book Evolution in 2 Words, noted that intuition served as the original means of exchange among people, enabling communication among any creature. He does say exactly like that, but almost like that. But the idea is that the intuition is the first stage of mediumship. It could act as a mental induction in feelings or ideas, thus influence progress, and at least hindering, and at the same time, hindering progress, depending on our behavior and depending on the mental suggestion that we allow to get through us. And then we need to talk why, how this influence is so strong that influence our behavior, influence our thoughts, because of what we can call the law of affinity, or in a modern language, I would say because of resonance. We can enter in resonance, or our thought frequency can enter in resonance with other beings. Either they are like us in the material world or in the spiritual world. When we enter in resonance with other beings, either through our thoughts or our emotions, we can influence them or be influenced by them. And then it's obvious that the good draw to themselves spirits already inclined toward improvement, while the insubordinated, rebellious person will attract those of similar temperament. I think it's a quite clear understanding. We attract those who we resonate with. Therefore, when we focus on the concept of goodness and how difficult in this world it is to focus on this simple concept, we as individuals may receive intuitive guidance from our spiritual friends, our spiritual benefactors, our spiritual protectors. They don't tell us what we should do. However, they can inspire us to make better decisions and to face life's challenges in a better way for us and for those who live with us. In the other side, when we are stubborn, when we allow irrational ideas of hurt, resentment to prevail, of what happens, we open the door to malicious intelligences that can transmit irritating or evil thoughts and ideas. These thoughts and ideas can exacerbate our moods and have harmful consequences for us as individuals or for our community, because we start behaving crazy or outside of this goodness that we look from, this ethical, moral ideal that we have. Another point, I said before that we can develop mediumship like we develop intelligence. How can we do that? Education ourselves. However, what we have seen is also sleep also contributes to the development of mediumship. When we sleep, of course, we benefit our physical restoration, our physical health. But when we sleep, we gradually practice partial detachment from our spiritual body. We leave the body, what we say, no? We can, by leaving the body, we let our material body laying in bed or during a meditation or whatever, and in the sleep we go out. And because we are, while in the everyday life, so worried with those small things that happen around us, we don't have the peace of mind to get ourselves free from those influences. When we sleep, we open the door, and if we have the ideal of living with ethics, with the moral of the gospel, we can get our spiritual guides to bring us, for instance, to receive lectures at the spiritual world, or to visit our friends at the spiritual worlds, to visit our dear one in the spiritual world. And then step by step, by being able to get out of the body, to get our views to broaden our views, to get more peace within, we can also develop our mediumship and also come back with more inspiration, moral support from those beings that are our friends in the spiritual world, and get rid of negative influences that drain our energy, that implant really harmful ideas, thoughts, or aggressions in ourselves. It means that gradually we develop, we discover, and we expand, develop our mediumship and psychic potential, making better choices, facing the consequences of our actions. When I say expand mediumship and psychic potential, there are quite a lot of experiences since the 80s, the 70s, with remote view, for instance. Remote view is a kind of out-of-body experience where you are aware of what we are doing, when you see what is happening around you while your body is in a stage of rest, let's say. However, coming back to these different forms of mediumship, we know that each person, each of us, is in some degree a medium, either because we receive intuitions from other spirits, or in a more substantial degree, we are mediums because either we hear the spirits, or we see the spirits, or we have other type of mediumship influence of other paranormal activity or psychic activity. Why I'm coming back to that? Because if mediumship is an organic capability, closely linked to emotional and behavioral factors, it demands ongoing self-development, discipline, commitment. Consequently, the importance of moral education for any of us, medium or non-medium, is obvious. Considering that we are a spirit in evolution, what we come when we incarnate, I would say, with a baggage, with a box of a lot of different tendencies, trends of behavior, trends of emotional expression, sometimes with insecurities, other times with tendency to be sad, to be afraid, or in certain circumstances we have the baggage, we carry the baggage of our past experience, and we cannot, some say, get rid of them. Oh yeah, that's not true. We can. How we get rid of this baggage that we don't need? Because we also carry another baggage, the baggage of our intelligence, the baggage of the baggage with our intelligence, with things that we did and experienced in past lives that turned to be good for us and for other people, the achievements we did in science, in education, in any field of the humans and the human science, or in the human society. We need then to increase or to enhance the potential we already have, we already develop, and at the same time look at this baggage of things that hinder us back. And one of the biggest problems we all have is what? The ego. And the ego in our society is a biggest, an elephant. I would say the wild elephant in the room. The ego, like our mentor used to say, Joana de Angelis, through the words of Divaldo Franco, she used to say that the lust of power is so much inside of the human being because it's an ancestral atavism from the process of animal evolution. Means ego comes from the survival instinct, comes from our for being eager to survive at the cost of anything. And then this struggle to survive becomes a struggle for power and stimulates, of course, from one side, the development of intelligence and willpower, but also manifests itself in harmful ways when it predominates, over feelings, over sentiments, when ego is whatever I want. I want power, and I will get power at any cost. In this sense, it can lead to resentment, anger, and other negative emotions and behaviors that harm individual and society. By allowing the ego to generate emotions like that, which are always selfish, individualistic, we open the door to influences from those who oppose ourselves, that means who don't like ourselves, who don't like our position and our ways of living in this world, whether they are our direct enemies or enemies of our ideals or of the ideals that we want to profess. You see how what is really mediumship? When we say, I want to be a medium, I want to be open to the spiritual world. It's not so easy. We are already open to the whole world, to the influence among ourselves, to the influence of the spirits. When we are aware of this influence, we have much more responsibility. We know that we can influence and we can be influenced. We can also anticipate the consequences of our lack of vigilance. When you are a medium and you don't follow this, pay attention. What are you saying? What are you thinking? What are you doing? When you don't do this, what Saint Augustine would recommend everyone to do before sleeping, look what you did during the day. Why do you behave in this way? Why you didn't took the other path why you didn't take this decision and not that one? We start understanding our tendencies, our patterns in behavior and in emotions, and we can stop those that are negative, that are disturbing us. If mediums are not conscious and self-aware, they can become puppets of others and unconsciously allow themselves to be led into degrading, and painful situations. That means to remain in contact with the noble spirits, with our spiritual guides, with the spirits that have a higher understanding, we need to impose dignified, ethical, and moral conduct to ourselves. We need to direct our behavior toward our own and the well-being of the others, to work towards our own renewal, and that and the renewal of the society where we live, either being the small community, the family, or in our professional, or wherever we are. If we don't look at that, if we neglect our own behavior, because today I will say that I'm not well, but I'm very healthy. But you see, no one will know, because everyone has a flu and maybe or a cold, and then I can tell I'm not doing that because I have a cold. It's what we call a white lie. White lies are lies. It's a tendency. I remember I had a friend when we were from childhood, and she loved to lie, to make fantasy about everything. Small things. We were 7, 8, 10 years old. The issue is that this lady continues doing that. And today she's a 60 years old who fantasizes, who build a fantasy world for herself that does exist. Harm for him, for herself. The other point I'd like to, we are just finishing in more 3 minutes or 5 minutes. The other point I would like to make is that the noble spirits are not at service of mediums' dreams, desires, or pleasures. When the desires or the pleasures prevail, they withdraw. And the resonance or the law of affinity attract those who adjust to those worldly desires and pleasures, that opening then the door for what no one wants to talk, obsessive process that can grow and turn into dark and painful dramas. And we are not talking today about that, but it's a real issue. That the conscious exercise of mediumship requires what? Education, discipline, order, and even disinterest in any thanks or reward. Discipline is an important aspect of personal education. Without discipline, we cannot educate ourselves, we cannot get anything. I would like to mention the point of favors, because sometimes as a medium, people love mediums. The person is a medium, the people tend to have this tendency of say, he's my hero because he's a medium, he or she's a medium. And then they start getting present gifts, small gifts, and just to praise, or in our world, everyone is accustomed to buy favors. Then people tend also to give small gifts in a way to pay for the service rendered. And then mediumship quickly becomes synonymous of merchandise. In fact, anything that feeds pride is harmful to the medium, because are indirect favors that distort the mediumship practice. For us, mediumship has such a value that cannot be paid. On the contrary, we as medium serve the humanity and serve ourselves. And when we start getting indirect favors, it's a good path for what we call fascination. That means getting so proud of ourselves that we start ignoring the rest. For this reason, education of those mediumistic forces is a very lengthy and long process. And we say, we are a medium. Divaldo Franco, for instance, was a medium that the whole his life, since he was 4 till he was 98 years old. And what the the spirits through these noble mediums have said it is the education of mediumship forces the mediumship forces is a lengthy process because as sensitivity is refined, the capacity of extra physical registration and perception expands. That means more we exercise the mediumship, more we expand it. But this requires a lengthy and long process. This is why some people start with intuition, and then at the end of the life, they are a medium, or much before. I will finish with a story that I heard last year. A young woman came to me to told her experience with a medium several years ago. And it was such an interesting experience that I want to share with you. She said that she had been very ill, and I remember that because we were friends from childhood. And at that time, she had to undergo 2 consecutive surgeries without the doctor identify the cause of a generalized infection that she had. On the day that she received the news that she would need a 3rd operation, she was talking with a friend, medium, and this friend told her, look, in this very casual and friendly conversation, look, I think you will not survive a 3rd operation. Of course, my friend told me she was so got that so how will say deeply inside that she didn't know more what to expect. She said, okay, leave without the operation I cannot, and leave with the and after the operation maybe I will also not leave. We can understand the stress that this medium brought to this person, how upset, extremely upset she was with this news. And the medium just said, why I'm telling you that? You may be thinking, because as medium, we needed to be conscious of what we do, what we say, because sometimes we get news that we think we should say, but we should not. Knowing what we can do and what we cannot do, or we should not do, or we must not do, is very, very important. And we can only understand the difference in what we can and what we cannot, or to should and what we shouldn't, what we must and what we mustn't, when we know ourselves, when we understand what are the communication we are getting. Divaldo has many, many different stories about that. But one of the stories that I remember he telling us that once he was giving bioenergy, what we call PACES in Brazil, to someone that was very sick. And he was so happy because the person looked much more energetic. And one of his spiritual guides told him, oh, he's getting better. He will get better. And Divaldo told the wife of the dying man, look, he will get better. The next day, he came there to again give the energy, and the man was already at the end of his life. And then he asked his spiritual guide, but you didn't tell me that he was getting better? He said, yes, he's getting better. He went through the whole illness, and he will get better in the spiritual world, and more, he will not have the problem of dealing with things that he couldn't deal in this life because he's going to the other life. Life is so bigger, so great, that we don't grasp his mysteries. And mediumship that is neutral in nature, is physiological in nature, should be treated exactly like that. Something that we learn, we educate, like we educate our intelligence, like we educate ourselves. And this is what I would like to share with you today. We could talk much more here, but to finalize, don't forget to love. The experience of the psychology of love is what turns us to better human beings, and it's what will contribute to the development of our society. Not the society that we are living today, but being a small light, a small seed of light in this society may contribute to a better society in the future. I thank you for listening to me, and I hope we can discuss a little bit and maybe, exchange some thoughts, more thoughts about that.
Thank you so very much, Rejane, for sharing your insightful reflections with us today. Please, everyone, stay with us for the Q&A session, which will begin shortly after a few announcements. We invite you to follow us on our social media channels, as you see on screen, to stay updated on upcoming events and activities. And don't forget to visit the USSF bookstore at spiritisbooks.us, where you'll find a wide selection of Spiritist books, including several exciting new releases. If you work with Spiritist youth or are interested in educational resources, be sure to explore the Family, Youth, and Children's Spiritist Education, FYCSE website at spiritismkids.us, where you'll discover excellent materials and ideas for youth educators. And please take a moment to check out the Be My Hope app, which offers inspiring daily messages to uplift your spirit. It's available for free on both the App Store and Google Play. So let's now turn our attention to your comments and questions. There's still time to send yours in, so please feel free to share your thoughts. So the first is from the U.S. Spiritist Federation. Is mediumship only active during our wake cycles or also during our sleep cycles?
For someone that studies neurology and the neurology of sleep, if I understand what the question is because I said that during the sleep we can develop our mediumship. The mediumship is not something that we are doing in the spiritual world. It's not what I wanted to say. What I want to say is that the fact that we are out of body and we visit the spiritual world as a person, it easiest the way it make easiest to develop the psychic ability, because we are practicing a psychic ability that is going out of the body. I'm sorry if someone misunderstood.
Thank you very much for that. And from Daniel Santos, what is the difference between mediumship and animism in a conscious state?
Very interesting. I think this is the question of everyone who starts educating its mediumship. We get that quite often. Animism was a term used by a psychologist, a Russian psychologist, Gurdjieff, to define the psychic abilities that we have. Mediumship is the communication with spirits. We can say that it's also a psychic ability, but it's a very specific ability. Animism is all the other abilities that we do have. Telepathy is animism, because it could be bringing from our subconscious past life knowledge is also an animism. And during seances, it's quite common when mediums starting educating their mediumship to that those how you say that in those facets of our own soul will come to the surface. That means something from the subconscious mind will come to the conscious mind, and it can come as a communication from the spirits, but it's a communication from the own soul, from our own soul. I think it's not difficult to understand. We are a spirit, we are a soul, and we have our baggage, as I was saying. This baggage can surface like in an iceberg. What is in the deep waters can come to the surface in, for instance, in a seance. This is in few words, the difference between mediumship and animism. But please, if you have something, if you communicate to us and you think that is from your own soul, that matter. With the practice of mediumship, we will develop further, and the spirits will communicate through you. Mediumship is practicing. It's not hiding it. It's practicing and being free, being confident, trying to establish this bridge with the high spirits that will support us.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. And from Spiritism USA, how does a medium's intellect and culture limit a spirit's message in conscious mediumship?
When conscious mediumship means that we are using the full ability, at least is how I understand. Of course, our culture, our intellect influence our mediumship in itself. But the message of the spirits, it will be filtered by the medium capabilities. However, what we are today is different what we were yesterday. And sometimes I'm here living in Austria, fighting with the language, with German, sometimes English, as you can see here. But maybe in another life, I spoke perfectly English or German. And therefore, a spirit can communicate using this ability that I had before and communicate in English or in German or in Japanese or in Chinese. It is an example of how fine and how complex is also this ability and this mediumship exercise.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. And from the U.S. Spiritist Federation, what differs mediumship from intuition?
Difficult, huh? Very difficult. The intuition is the beginning. Sometimes the intuition comes from the spirit, and then the mediumship starting to manifest. But the intuition can be even for another soul that is living in the body. For instance, I think I have a good example. When my mother was alive, we used to talk every day on the phone. Of course, in the last 20 years, before 20 years, it was quite expensive. We couldn't do that. But we used to talk very much. And then I almost knew when she was calling or when I need to call. It was mediumship? No, it was communication between two minds that loved each other. It's that means mediumship can be intuition. Intuition cannot be mediumship.
Understood.
Both things are true.
Oh, very good. Thank you. And from TVCEI, how do we separate our own conceived thoughts from spiritual community?
Look, I'm still trying. After 30 years of rational and awareness, conscious expression of mediumship, I'm not such a high medium. I'm just a normal one. I'm still learning. And Divaldo Franco used to say that he was still learning mediumship after all the 70 or 80 years of practicing. Very difficult to separate our own thoughts from the spiritual communication. However, we practice, we pay attention to the patterns of our own thinking. If I don't like, and I would say a very simple comparison, if I don't like to eat sweets, how sometimes I want so much a chocolate? It's not mine. That is not a good example because I love chocolate, but it's an easy example for you to understand how the need of separate what is what we want, what we are, from what comes from the other. It's exercise, it's practice. This is why knowing yourself is the only path to evolve. There is no other path. And for a medium, it's imperative. It's a must. You need to know yourself to be able to distinguish what we are from what the others are trying to impose you. And more, in the society we live, we need much more to know ourselves, because we are having influence not from spirits, but from social media, from newspaper, from everywhere.
Ah, very wonderful. So, thank you very, very much, Rejane. And heartfelt thanks to everyone who joined us for today's live talk, as well as those who regularly follow our weekly Spiritism Talk series. Your continued engagement is truly appreciated. We invite you to join us next Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for our next live session, where Luis Lima will be exploring the topic Procrustean Solutions. We look forward to having you with us. Rejane, before we close, would you please share your final remarks and then lead us in the close prayer?
I would like to thank the opportunity to be again in this talk series, and I thank you for who was listening to my own talks or my reflections on this topic. And if you please wanted to listen or know more about my own studies on Spiritism, go to my webpage, rejaneplana.org, or look at my papers. I have quite a lot of writings that are out of the box, are sometimes breaking the ceiling, because as a scientist, I could not talk before, but now I can. And that is very good. Then see you next time. Thank you, brotherly. Thank you for being so nice with me. And apologize for the accent. It will get better one day in the next life. Bye.